We give you our first impressions of the 2019 Audi A8. We talk about the dark days of winter and how you can get better performance out of your headlights, and we take your questions next on Talking Cars. Hi, and welcome to another episode. I'm Mike Quincy.
I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Gabe Shanhar.
So we're shooting this podcast. It's December. It's in the Northeast. And honestly, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4:15, it starts getting dark, which means people are driving home in the dark. And that kind of brings us to the state of headlights. And recently, AAA published a study that said, over time, the plastic coating on headlights can become so clouded or yellowed that they give off only 20% of the light they had when you first bought the car. And Consumer Reports Online has a piece on this study as well, where we talk about headlights and our headlight testing. But with us right now is Mr. Gabe Shanhar, who can kind of give us a little bit of background on how Consumer Reports started testing headlights.
So it was back in the early 2000s.
The dark ages?
Yes.
Get that?
I got it, Quince. Thanks.
Sorry.
And
You have to explain the joke.
Yeah, it's not funny.
and I'm driving home with a Chrysler minivan, and literally I can't see for it's like 4:20. It's pitch black. I mean, it's not just dark. It's black. And on these country roads around here, it's totally, I couldn't see for like 10 feet ahead of me. And next morning, in one of those conversations, by the cooler or the photocopier, we're talking, and I throw it in the air. Maybe we should start testing headlight. And at the time, we were kind of getting ready to do away with the bumper test, so it seemed fitting.
Gotta stay busy.
We might be helping more people with headlight testing than bumper testing.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because around that same era of Chryslers, actually, I remember driving around in a Chrysler Sebring and thought the same thing. The headlights are so lousy that I'm going to do a little experiment. I'm going to drive around with the high beams on and see if anyone notices. And lo and behold, no one noticed.
Yeah, I mean, I had kind of a similar situation. I bought a used second-gen Acura Integra years ago from a friend, actually, and the
Never
low
do
beams.
that.
What's that?
You never buy from a friend.
I did.
No longer friends.
And the low beams were so dim that I experimented with driving around with my high beams on. And again, no one noticed. And I really needed that light. Luckily, I lived in Southern California where, it's not as critical because there's so many street lights and it's so lit up that, you can't be driving around with high beams on anyway, usually, but because other people would be seeing it. But it's critical here in more rural areas where it's, gets very, very dark. You need really strong headlights. And it's funny because, so we do our own testing here. Jen Stockberger is in charge of that. And one of the things she says drivers need at least 300 to 350 feet to see and react and brake for something. And usually, she said, in our testing, light reaches on average about 300 feet. If the illumination drops to only 20%, that means you're only seeing 60 feet in front of the car. That's a gigantic number. Actually, it's a tiny number.
You need more distance also to stop.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's kind of a big deal.
And you have, I think she gave some advice on what people can do.
Well, yeah, I mean, so we tested some, what they're called headlight restoration kits a few years ago. And, these are only around $25 or so. And, it takes a little elbow grease to apply this and get it's really the headlight covers that get cloudy. And you're trying to clean those. You can also have a mechanic do it. And it does help significantly. But what we also found was it only lasts for about a year or so before it starts coming back again. Right. So it might be something when your car does get a little older, it might be something you want to do actually every year. But again, $25 or less is not a lot of money to spend for, the safety of you and your car and people around you.
Right. So
we're talking cars that are like 7, 8, 10 years old.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for more bright ideas, go to Consumer Reports and find out more about a headlight test.
Yeah.
Okay. So that will transition us to what we're driving this week. The car at the track of the moment that we decided we're going to talk about is the 2019 Audi A8. This is a super slick, very high-end German sedan that has wowed many of us. And honestly, Gabe, give us your first impressions.
It's an ultra luxury car, and it costs almost $100,000. We've tested the BMW 7 Series, the Mercedes S-Class, the Lexus LS just very recently, and that car competes in that arena, and it really is impressive. I mean, it rides like a dream. It's so quiet. I mean, the interior fit and finish is so super nice and pampering. And the high tech inside is actually relatively easy to use. So and the power is so smooth and linear. It's just a delight of a car.
And talk about lights. It has a pretty dramatic interior lighting, LED light show going on.
Yeah, it does. More and more cars are having that, and it looks fantastic. Like Gabe said, it has some, like a suede headliner, just beautiful materials. The drivetrain, this turbo V6, works really, really well. If you didn't know it, you'd think it was a V8 that was powering this car. It just feels, substantial. I mean, but there's no question, this is an expensive car. But unlike some cars, when I was driving it, I felt like, okay, this is a really expensive car, almost $100,000. But it still felt like it was worth every penny because it feels that substantial, that solid, the beautiful ride, so quiet, decent handling, not amazing handling, but good handling.
But it's still a large car.
Yeah, well, one of the things that you can't help but notice as soon as you get in this car is these dual screens. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, so Audi moved away from that rotary knob, and they have two screens. They're touch screens, but they have actually a tactile haptic feedback to them. So it feels like you're actually, there's an indentation when you press
You actually can
on the
feel
glass.
some pushback on your finger. That's
Exactly.
what haptic is.
And I mean, the two screens, they may be a little daunting at first, but it's pretty manageable. The upper screen is for infotainment. The lower screen is pretty much only for the climate system. So instead of knobs and buttons, you have them in wrapped in a screen, and it works pretty well. It's not that big a deal to get used to it.
So I mean, the learning curve isn't too horrible.
So I drove the LS for a couple days, and then I got in the A8. And look, the LS is the controls are incredibly difficult to figure out. I mean, I've been driving it for a while now, and it's still usually I just try not to touch anything while I'm driving because it's that confusing. I got in the A8, and I got to say I was a little overwhelmed with the controls at first too, because we've gotten used to Audis being pretty simple. They were going away from buttons, and now it seems like they're bringing back more buttons. So nowhere near as bad as the LS, but it's going to take a little while for an owner to just get it figured out. But it's definitely still way better than the LS, and of course, it's hard not to compare these two cars because these two are in the same class, and it's not often that we usually don't have the whole field at the same time. So we have two, and if you think about the LS versus the A8, I mean, again, there's almost no comparison. Our LS was more expensive. It's $103,899, and our A8 L is $97,595. And I would never buy the LS because it rides much stiffer.
And even learning the LS's controls.
The controls would be annoying constantly for the rest of the time you own the car. The powertrain is nowhere near as nice. It's not silky smooth. It's kind of actually loud when you're really accelerating hard, whereas the Audi just sounds great all the time.
Exactly.
I found the driving position of the LS very claustrophobic.
Very confined,
Whereas with the A8, it's much more open. It's much more friendly. I just felt more attached to the whole driving experience with the A8.
Yeah, there's no question. Toyota really botched up the Lexus LS.
It's incredible how you can make something simple like Toyota can make something simple as the controls in, say, a Camry or a Highlander, and then they'll also produce something that's as maddening as the LS.
I think maybe they were trying to go for a different owner type or something, and I don't think it's going to work because of the same people that were buying it before are going to want to buy it again, and I think they're going to be turned off by this car, to be honest. But the A8, look, this new A8 doesn't look that much different than the old A8. This is kind of what Audi does. The Audi's been doing this for a while now.
The styling doesn't look that
The A4 looks very similar to the last A4. This is what they do, but it works because kind of like how the 911 always looks pretty similar. When you get onto a style that looks good, what they're doing is just kind of massaging it, making it look a little bit better with each generation. But it looks very classy. Whereas Lexus, tried to make it look really kind of in your face.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I kind of like the fact that the A8, even though it's such an elite car, it doesn't really strike you immediately as ostentatious. Like, hey, look at a Mercedes S-Class or some other car from this class, and it looks really like a ritzy kind of car. This the Audi kind of like it rides under the radar
It's a little more
screen.
subtle.
Yeah.
That can be good or bad
Right.
depending on whether you're working for Audi marketing. They want something to stand out, or they want it to fly under the radar. But honestly, the white elephant in the room is how much all these cars cost.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about the $97,000 for the A8, a similar equipped 7 Series about $95, an S Class $115, RLS $500, $103,000.
Yeah.
Honestly got me thinking, and you guys can weigh in on this, but you had that much money to spend on a car, what would you buy?
Honestly, I don't think there is any reason for anyone to buy a car that costs more than $70,000. If you do that, it's purely for vanity purposes. Because for $70,000, you can buy so many nice cars, whether it's a midsize sedan, a pickup truck, a nice SUV. And I'm not putting down.
Gabe said pickup truck.
Yeah,
Can you believe?
He's normally not a huge pickup fan.
Yeah, not for me. I mean, it's not about me to show. But anyway,
I'm a pickup man.
For instance, the X5, the BMW X5 we're testing now, $68,000. I mean, that car is so slick, so nice, so complete, so right in so many things. So, and I'm not putting down wanting luxury, wanting quality, wanting refinement.
But, I mean,
and you
if
can
think,
get all of that for $70,000. Beyond that, it's really diminishing returns.
That'd be enough.
Yeah.
So I think Gabe just called me vain because my pick is, and for once, producer Tolley, I'm only picking one car, not 3 like I usually do. But I am gonna cheat a little bit. You know, we sort of set a $105,000 limit for what we were gonna pick a car with, and I'm gonna just sneak up a little bit above that to $113,900.
Look at you.
So you could get an Audi RS7. Because that is, I think if you're gonna spend around $100,000, spend a little more and get an amazing, amazing car. 560 horsepower, 4-liter twin-turbo V8. I think it's one of the best looking 4-doors there is out there. Of course, it's actually a hatchback or a sportback as Audi calls it, but the performance is amazing. The handling is awesome. And it still has the fantastic Audi, meticulously built interior.
Right. And it sounds the best among all of them.
Sounds great. So that's what I would do. But not even for the vanity, just for the driving more than anything. Yeah.
Well, I've got kind of an improbable pick, and I mean as improbable as the Miami Dolphins beating the Patriots.
Would you stop
last second
it.
play.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Producer Dave, why would you feed that?
Very improbable. But anyway, so I'm looking at how much these cost, and it's interesting that you said the Audi RS7.
Yeah.
Because I went for a similar body style.
No way.
I'm going with the Kia Stinger GT2. I'm still stuck on that
that's
car.
True. Yeah.
You're still stung.
Nice, Dave.
Yes, and I'm not even allergic, so that's good. No, the GT2,
That's a great pick.
all-wheel drive, about $53,000, and this has, everything's standard, heated everything, high-end Harman Kardon audio, forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking, blind spot. All standard,
and a wonderful, wonderful drivetrain.
And it looks kind of same silhouette, looks kind of sexy.
Yeah,
fold down the back
That's
seat,
a great
put
choice.
your bike in the back, and I got a lot of money left over. With that extra money left over, I'm buying a top of the line Miata Grand Touring for about $33,000. So $90,000, 2 cars under the radar.
I like it.
There you go.
That's not bad, Quince.
Yes, improbable as it is, improbable.
Yeah. I don't always agree with your choices, but that's a pretty good one.
So the A8, certainly very impressive. We're going to have a first drive published on Consumer Reports Online and do more testing.
And we're going to be fighting for the keys for months.
Yes.
Yeah, good luck with that, because I'll beat you.
Getting it up to miles. Yeah,
Gabe
no
has
problem
hierarchy.
getting it up to miles. Which brings us to our next segment, and that's your questions. We love getting them. We get a ton of them. We wish we could get to all of them, but we can't. Keep them coming. Text or video questions to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. And first up, we have a video question about the future of the Chevrolet Volt. So let's take a listen.
Hello, Talking Cars. My wife's lease of a GM Volt comes due in September 2019. With GM slated to stop production of the Volt in March, what are our options as an alternative to the Volt? And the Volt so far has been an ideal vehicle for us. So now with Volt no longer being produced, we seem to be a bit stuck as to what other options we can use because we don't want to go full electric at this point.
As many of you might have heard, we talked about it in last week's episode, GM is deciding to discontinue a number of vehicles, the Volt being one of them. I guess my response to this first video question is if you really like your Volt, consider buying it at the end of the lease because GM is going to be providing lots of parts and service and coverage of this car for many years to come. So I'd say if you like it, stick with it. But there's kind of a interest in plug-in cars. So Mike, what's your pick for this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, I like your idea of if you like that Volt, why not buy it and keep it for a while? But honestly, if probably a better idea would be to get a Toyota Prius Prime. And I mean, it tops our ratings for compact electric and hybrids. Mm-hmm. And, it can run 23 miles on pure electric power. It's going to have, great predicted reliability and owner satisfaction scores. This is probably the car to get if, they're going to get rid of that Volt.
Right.
That would be my choice. It has unique styling.
Okay,
I didn't say ugly. I said unique.
Let's keep a straight face when he says
no,
that.
Actually, we talked about it in a previous episode, or maybe at the LA Auto Show.
Right.
You and Keith were talking about it, and Gabe and Keith actually really liked the styling of the car because it is unique, and especially in the Prime, which has these really cool taillights and stuff.
It hasn't grown on me.
Well, anyway, back to the Volt.
Yeah, but that would be my choice. Is go with a Toyota Prius Prime. You pretty much can't go wrong with that.
Okay, Gabe, what do you got?
I actually have to say I'm sad to see the Volt go because that car was really innovative, homegrown American car that focused more on being electric and without range anxiety and kind of bypassed the whole Toyota hybrid philosophy. But anyway, for this guy, stay with the Volt, buy it off the lease if you can. If not, if it doesn't make sense, then I'd go with a Ford Fusion plug-in hybrid because
I wrote that in my notes.
I mean, the car will give you 20 miles of electric drive, and then it'll revert to hybrid operation. But the car is fun to drive. It's it doesn't have all the those weird things of the Prius. And it's enjoyable. I mean, if he drives long distances, Fusion's a nice, solid car.
Right. Yeah. I
good handling.
Yeah. My notes. Good handling. Standard forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking. A really good car, kind of flies under the radar. And what's interesting about the Volt is General Motors in the past has like given up on cars. Like they put something out like but then they get rid of it. They gave Volt a second generation,
which was better. It was a better car.
Yeah.
Better car.
And that's not GM doesn't usually stick with these things as much as they do. And I agree with you. They really got this one right, and it's kind of sad to see that one go. Okay, well that moves us on to the next question is from Derek from Tacoma, Washington, with a question about EVs and charging. With so many options available for electric vehicles now, trying to find out which charging network is suitable has been somewhat of a challenge. The vehicle that currently has my eye is the new Jaguar I-Pace. I like Tesla's network, but their vehicles leave a lot to be desired with interior design for me. Thus, why the Jaguar has my attention. So honestly, Gabe, you really are our resident EV expert here. What do you got for Derek?
So I think first start with the car you want. Start with a car that fits your needs, fits your driving pattern, and then decide how you're going to charge it. Because if it's a long-range EV, you might get away with just a couple of opportunity charging here and there, and overnight charging it at home. So before you invest in a dedicated EV charger in your garage, see how you make out without it. And if you have a plug-in hybrid, you can definitely charge overnight, and you can here and there top it off at either at work or public charging. So that would be my advice here.
So Gabe, let's say you have something like a Chevy Volt. Were you going to say something else, or?
But with the I-Pace, I want to say with the I-Pace, we're just about to get our own I-Pace very soon. And so stay tuned for that. Yeah.
So my question is, let's say you have a Chevy Volt, which can go, this is one of the longer range electric cars out there right now. We know more are coming, but you can go 250 miles on a charge. What is the status? Like, let's say you were going to take a 1,000-mile trip or so, go somewhere 1,000 miles away and come back. How much of a pain is it? And you can get the optional fast charging, DC fast charging on the Chevy Volt. You can do this with a Tesla. We know you can get across the country with their supercharger system. But what if someone's trying to do that? No, you can do it now.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're conveniently located, usually pretty close to the interstate. What about for someone who doesn't have a Tesla, has something like a Bolt? Can they do that with their, find a DC fast charger to not have their trip take forever?
Yeah, realistically, if you have a Bolt or any other EV that's not a Tesla, you just forget about long distance driving.
For now.
For now, yes. Okay. Tesla did a really great service. In a Tesla, you can program your destination and navigation. I've have friends who did Florida, from here to Florida a few times, and it'll chart the course for you with all the venues of charging on the way, and that works really well. Now, to complement Tesla's network, Volkswagen, as part of the settlement after Dieselgate, they have a subsidiary called Electrify America, and they're going to spread a network of DC fast charging across the country for the next 10 years or so. And that's going to be brand blind. So it's not only going to serve their cars, Audi, Volkswagen, and Porsche, but also other EVs. So it's going to work with the SAE combo plug, as well as the more common CHAdeMO.
So it's coming, but it's going to be a while.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I appreciate the story of driving a Tesla to Florida, but it's going to take longer. It's going to take more hours.
You mean if you're driving an electric car?
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you're going to have to stop more often.
So,
so what you would do is you plan. So, okay, you're going to eat lunch at this while you're charging this time, and you're going to do this. Take some bathroom breaks at this other charging.
Right. And every time you stop for charging, it's like a half an hour, 40-minute thing, and you may not want to eat the Subaru pizza or the Dunkin' Donuts there.
Right.
So
no, it's not perfect yet.
There are limitations of EVs.
And people can know that we're going to stay current on all electric vehicles.
That's like 5 electric puns already today.
So let's move on to the next
docked
one.
points for every single one.
Maybe there are too many mics here.
The last question.
I just counted 5.
The last question is from Justin from Portland, Maine, looking for a good family car. Absolutely love your organization, your commitment to quality, and especially Mike's, that's Monticello's, earnest mistakes with his old Miata. I'm their tool. This was a reference to a Talking Cars episode that we had. It was number 161, our worst automotive mistakes. Anyway, good attention to detail, Justin. So Justin also writes, we are in the market for a safe family car that can handle a Maine winter, carry 2 teenagers and a dog, but will double duty as a highway commuter. We're settling on a Subaru Outback Touring 3.6, as we like to drive, want something that's reliable, and don't really like SUVs. This seems like a solid, if old school, tool for the job, but at this price point, we are lacking imagination. Is there something on a newer platform that you can suggest? Thanks so much for everything you guys do. So, good family car. Mike, what you got?
Well, first of all, I'm so glad my pain can make you feel better.
I took super producer Dave Abrams' suggestion, rewatched the episode. It was really funny.
Yeah, that was
161.
That was a dark time. So I would say that if you're looking for something, they don't really want an SUV, and if you don't really want an SUV, but you have the needs that they have, you really can't go wrong with the Outback. I mean, basically, what it is, it's a raised up, legacy wagon. But it's not great to drive. The 3.6 is pretty good to drive. So, but I would actually say, go with something like a Volkswagen Golf All-Track, which we tested here. And again, you can tell a lot by, how good a car is and how well liked it is by how often the keys are gone and someone has the car, whether they need the space because it's a wagon or because it's just a nice driving car. compared to the Outback, it has really nice handling, has a really nice turbo 4-cylinder. Doesn't have tons of power, but it's just a very refined powertrain. Nice interior. That's what I would suggest. If you want something that's a little more inspiring to drive, I'd say go with the Volkswagen Golf All-Track.
Good choice. What you got?
I would add, right. I mean,
you like the 3.6 Outback to begin
no,
with.
the 3.6 Outback really transforms a car. But there's another choice, and it's the Buick Regal Tour X.
Good one.
And it's if the room in the VW Golf All-Track is not enough, the Buick is going to give you a comparable room to the Outback. It's a little more sophisticated than the Outback in some ways. I mean, it drives like a well-honed European sports sedan. It's not as raised as the Outback, so it doesn't have that imagery of outdoors, and maybe that's what they're drawn to with the Outback. But I think it's an option.
So I latched on to your comment about being roomy, and I know Justin said that he didn't want an SUV,
right.
But I'm thinking about 2 teenagers. I got 2 teenagers. They're not going to be happy in the backseat of either of these cars, and so I said, just put your blinders on, check out the Hyundai Santa Fe XL. This is a car that did well in Consumer Reports testing, about the same money as the 6-cylinder Outback. And I think you'll appreciate the extra room. So that's really, I know we're not crazy about SUVs, but anyway, that's what I would suggest. And yeah, we love these questions. We get a ton of them. Just as a reminder, please keep sending them to talkingcars@icloud.com. And that's really going to wrap up this episode. If you want to learn more about the topics or the vehicles that we talked about in the show, check out the show notes. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.